a lot of people might be nervous about the AI, that it's going to automate our jobs or going to take our jobs, and obviously there are some roles that will disappear due to AI. But I'm also excited, very excited about the how it can augment what we're doing. It can augment our roles and enable us to do less of the stuff that we don't want to do and more of the stuff that we want to do.
Welcome to another episode of the IT Career Energizer podcast. I'm your host, Phil Burgess. Today's episode is the fourth in a catch-up series of daily episodes being released over the next 2 weeks. This episode having been recorded in August last year. My guest on today's show is Brent Dykes. Brent is the author of Effective Data Storytelling. He is also the founder of AnalyticsHero, a data storytelling consultancy, the director of data strategy at Domo, and a regular Forbes contributor. As you'll hear, we talk about the importance of data analytics to companies, but also the opportunity to build a career in data analytics. If you're interested in checking out Brent's book, you'll find the link in the episode description. I very much hope you enjoy listening to the episode. Welcome to the podcast, Brent.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So maybe we can start with understanding a little bit about what you're doing now, maybe some history in terms of your own career.
Yeah, I studied marketing in university. And so I was debating between going into accounting or marketing and chose marketing. I worked briefly in web design for a web design agency, then went back to get my MBA. And then when I graduated from the MBA program, I got into analytics. And so I was doing analytics consulting for a company called Omniture, which was later acquired by Adobe. And I spent 12 years, most of that time, about 8 of those years in consulting, working with Fortune 500 companies. And then 4 of those years, I was an evangelist for our analytics platform at Adobe. And then I joined a cloud-based business intelligence platform called Domo and worked there for 4 years. And then I joined a web analytics agency out of California called Blast Analytics. And then I'm almost coming up on my 3-year anniversary of running my own company called AnalyticsHero, where I published a book on effective data storytelling. And I focus on effective training and coaching and consulting around effective data storytelling.
There'll be a link in the show notes about your book, so that'll be good. But maybe, obviously, data analytics isn't something we typically discuss. So it'd be good to maybe get an understanding of what that means or what data analytics actually is.
Yeah, so it's obviously, in IT, you're generating a lot of information. You're collecting a lot of information on the business, different aspects of the business. And so data analytics is really taking that information, analyzing it. Often it can be involved with taking that raw data, turning it into information in the form of reports and dashboards, but then also analyzing that data to find insights that you can then use to change and optimize the way your business is running, and that can be right across all functional areas. Whether you're in sales or whether you're in marketing, whether you're in HR or operations, any of those areas have data and they need to optimize their performance. And so data analytics is really about helping those functional areas to get the data that they need and to make better decisions at the end of the day.
Yes, you often hear people talking about how the importance of data within a company. Is this something that you think has sort of gathered momentum? Is it something that there is more focus on now than there maybe was sort of 10, 15 years ago?
Based on the volume of data that most companies have or most organizations collect today, yes. One thing is to collect it, but then another thing is to actually do something with it. And so a lot of companies have a lot of data on their customers, on their business processes, and they ultimately want to take that data and do something with it. They want to turn it into insights. And an insight is, I go with the definition from Gary Klein, who said that an insight is an unexpected shift in the way we understand things. And that's a really simple but very helpful definition in my mind that helps us to see how can we take this information and discover something new, something unexpected about how we think our customers interact with us, or how this process works or doesn't work for our customers or for our employees or whatever it is we're analyzing, and then actually introducing that insight, that shift in our understandings, where maybe to use an example, maybe we felt like our customers buy our product because of a certain feature, like maybe it's how user friendly it is, the product that we sell. When we do some surveying of our customers or our top customers, they actually reveal it's actually not how user friendly it is. It's actually because it's very integrated with other tools that they have. And so that would be an insight. We're like, oh, wow. Like we never thought it was because we always thought that it was the user friendliness of our tool, not that it was because of how integrated it worked with other platforms or tools that they have. And so then that could trickle down into, well, we better start marketing that in terms of how we tell other prospects, what are the advantages of our products? Or maybe we invest more in app ad integrations rather than improving the user friendliness of the tool. So as you can see, that one shift in our understanding then cascades into different decisions and different changes in how we take that information and do something with it. And so absolutely, data analytics is going to be super powerful. It's obviously, I think, very important to a lot of companies. And if we think about the role of AI builds on all that rich data and helps to do something with it again. So it really comes back to that foundation being the data.
Indeed. And presumably, therefore, from what you've just talked about, there's going to be a lot of opportunity going forward.
Yes, definitely. I mean, companies they have so much data that they're collecting, and obviously AI is going to help with doing some of the more mundane tasks associated with managing and taking care of that data. But I really do feel like human beings need to step in there and help in terms of being analysts and taking that data and doing something with it, finding those insights and then being able to optimize the business around them. So definitely feel like there's lots of opportunity there.
Good. Right. Okay, good. So Brent, can you share with us a career tip, one that the audience may not be aware of and perhaps should be?
Yeah. So one thing that's benefited me in my career is that I worked in consulting. So when I first started my career, I was in an individual contributor role. I wasn't in consulting. And then after I did my MBA, I then got into a consulting role. And so what that enabled me to do is to not only work for the company that I was working with, right? So if you only work for one company, you get exposure to just that company's kind of unique kind of environment, whether that's how they make decisions, the culture, the industry that you work in. As a consultant, I could actually work with all kinds of different industries. I could work with automotive companies. I could work with retail companies. I could work with media companies. I could get exposure to lots of different industries. I could also work with companies at different maturity levels in how they were using data or how they're embracing technology. So some of those companies were very leading edge, and that was great. And then I also saw some that were laggards, that they didn't know how to take full advantage of their technologies that they're investing in. And so just interacting with different cultures, interacting with different dynamics within these companies from a political perspective or just the maturity, some investing in people and technology, not others not. It was just, it's almost like when you're working in consulting, you're getting kind of like dog years, right? You're getting every 1 year of consulting is like 7 years working outside of consulting. And so for me, that was really helpful for me to kind of see things from a different perspective, give me a richer, fuller perspective of my focus, analytics, from that perspective of multiple industries, multiple companies, multiple functional areas. That was super beneficial to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talked about consultancy companies in particular there, but obviously people tend to think of the bigger companies, but presumably there are lots of smaller consultancies that do this as well.
Yeah, no, you don't have to just think of the big four, whatever kind of consultancies. There's lots, especially in technology. There's so many different consulting jobs out there where you can take your technical skills and then You get to work with lots of different clients, and it's an amazing experience. I feel like it's really benefited my career immensely.
So, Brent, can you tell us about your worst career moment and what you learned from that?
Yeah, it probably came early in my career. When I first came out of college, I graduated. I was one of the I did very well in university, got good grades, got scholarships, different things, and I was able to get a good position, and I performed well in that position for the first 6 months. And then at that point, I was working for the VP of sales, and he said, "Brent, tell me what job you'd like to do." And so I had studied marketing in university, and I was excited to apply those skills. And I knew that there was a gap at this web design agency that I was working at, and they didn't have anybody who was really doing marketing. And so I said, well, why don't I step into that role and be the marketing manager for this web design agency? And that was probably my mistake in terms of how I approached it. I probably got in over my head at that point because there was a real hunger to have somebody take over marketing. And when I got into that role, all of a sudden everybody started reaching out to me, and I was pulled in different directions, and I also pulled at the highest levels. The CEO of the company was also very excited to have somebody who was going to do marketing, and sometimes his perspective didn't align with my boss's perspective, and I was caught kind of in a rock between two hard places. I really didn't know, do I listen to my boss, who's obviously my boss, or do I listen to the CEO, who's the boss of my boss? And when they didn't see eye to eye, I was kind of, not really knowing which way to go, and didn't know how to handle kind of the politics as well. And so it really taught me that the one lesson it taught me is that, yeah, like you can learn how to do a job from a book perspective, from a textbook, right? And you can be smart, but until you've gained experience, the street smarts in a job, you're going to struggle to perform well. And so I had to go to my boss and tell him, you need to hire my manager. I am not qualified to do this role. I bit off way more than I could handle. And and so that's what happened. He hired my new manager, and I watched her do everything the right way. And I sort of mentored, but I could kind of see how she handled situations that I didn't know how to handle. And I watched how she handled them much better than I did. And so that taught me a very valuable lesson that it's not just about how smart you are, how sharp you are. It's also, you do need to have some experience. You need to have those street smarts, that know how to play the political games within an organization. And that was a valuable lesson to me, as I matured in my career over the years, I continued to learn lessons, about how to interact with people and how to handle tough situations. And so I don't know if I was ever an amazing manager, but I can tell you I was a much better manager when I was tasked with managing people later on in my career than I was in those, after the 6 months that I had that job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, obviously I understand very much what you're saying about maybe not being ready, as you said, not having those street smarts about how to work politically within an organization. But do you think by being in the deep end almost, going into something that you had no idea about, you learned a lot from that in a short space of time?
Yeah, how not to do things? Absolutely.
Yes.
No, it was a good juxtaposition to see how my future manager handled challenges that I had experienced, and see how she handled them. And so it was very, I can say, oh, I did this and she did that. And I can say, okay, and she had success and I had failed. And I could see, oh, that's clearly, that's great, and then I kind of internalized that. And so in the future in my career, I was much more, I was too naive, I think, early in my career, that the experience wasn't really as important as just being intelligent and just powering through and hardworking, right? I was hardworking too. So it's more than just intelligence and hard work. Having that experience and knowing how to navigate the politics within an environment, within a business environment, is very, very important. Because if you're not in your career yet, you're gonna run into this, that organizations, especially large organizations, are very political. There's a lot of office politics going on, and navigating those waters can be tricky without a mentor, without a coach or a manager to kind of guide you and kind of understand how to interpret and how to handle different situations. And so that's something, yeah, you do have to be kind of thrown into the fire, but it's also good to have people that you can lean on and say, hey, how should I handle this situation? What should I do here? What should I say here? How should I respond to this email? Different things like that, that without somebody to kind of guide you and coach you, you can make mistakes that hurt your career.
Yeah, very good. And maybe on a more positive note, can you tell us about your career highlights so far?
Yeah, no, that's difficult because you're trying to think what's that most important. One thing that comes to mind was that one moment that I was pretty proud of was when we were in a tricky situation. So I was working in consulting for this one company. We had this big new client, and it was one of our competitors' biggest clients. And so we were brought in to they were evaluating our technology and our offering at this large organization. And so we had this opportunity to get in and win the business. And so I was leading a team of consultants, and we just, dug in and really tried to understand what they were trying to do with the data and the analytics that they had, what kinds of business questions they were trying to answer, what kinds of objectives and what was their strategy behind why they're looking for this data, and just try and outperform this other existing vendor that they had. And so we worked with them for several months, and we were able to win that business. So I don't know if it was me single-handedly winning that business for us, but definitely, I felt like I played definitely a very big contribution to impressing that client and winning their business going forward by the work that we did from a consulting perspective.
Good. Okay. And what excites you about the future of the industry and careers in technology and IT, if you like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about. I mean, a lot of people might be nervous about the AI, that it's going to automate our jobs or going to take our jobs, and obviously there are some roles that will disappear due to AI. But I'm also excited, very excited about the how it can augment what we're doing. It can augment our roles and enable us to do less of the stuff that we don't want to do and more of the stuff that we want to do. Because it's always going to be this, laborious kind of manual kind of ticky-tack things that honestly we don't need to do as human beings. Our intellect, our creativity, our problem solving, it's much better suited to other kind of more strategic kind of responsibilities. And so I'm excited to see how we as human beings working in IT or working in analytics can use that technology to augment what we do and amplify the value that we deliver. I'm very excited about the infusion of AI within the workplace.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that pans out, I suppose. Yes.
Yeah,
I don't think we know, do we?
not at this point. We're still figuring it out.
Just a quick interruption to remind you to follow or subscribe to the show in your podcast app. Every download and listen improves the show's discoverability. By subscribing and downloading, you'll be helping more people to develop successful careers in tech. And my thanks to you for being a listener. If you have any suggestions about things you'd like covered in the show, or potential guests, why not leave a comment or review? You may even get a shout out in a subsequent episode. We're going to go into the reveal round now. We're going to find out a little bit more about you and the way you think. Are you ready for this?
Sure, let's go.
So what first attracted you to a career in technology or IT?
I've always been a curious person. I've always been interested in data and facts, and I found that really resonated with me. And so just being able to work with data and use that to discover things, ways of improving the business, that definitely attracted me to analytics and data.
And what is the best career advice you've ever received?
Never surprise your leaders. I was in a situation where I can't remember what happened. We had it was a client, um, or maybe it was working with another team, and there was a surprise that came up, and we had to kind of address it. And my manager gave me good cover fire and backed me up. But then later, as he was leaving, he said, "Let's not make don't I don't like surprises, Brent, and I don't think any manager or leader likes surprises. So the more you can minimize the surprises that you give to your leaders, the better. And that may mean giving them a heads up of what could happen, what may be happening, and just so that they're not caught. They never want to be embarrassed, right? You never want to
No.
embarrass your manager or your leader, and so that was a good reminder for me to just make sure that I was on top of things and making sure that my manager was not surprised by anything that I was working on.
Yeah, that is good advice. Yes. And conversely, what is the worst career advice you've ever received?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm trying to think because usually what happens is I ignore bad advice, right? So I don't even
Yeah,
register it. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything I can think of. I'm not getting anything.
that's
So
fine. We'll
sorry.
move on. That's okay. And if you were to begin your career again in today's world, what would you do?
The interesting thing was when I got into my career, analytics didn't exist. There was no real data work. When I was studying in marketing, you could do market research, but one professor said that's the way to make the least amount of money in marketing. So I didn't go down that path. But I think for today, I think there's so many different options. If you want to study analytics and get into the data world, that would be super amazing. Also, AI on top of that data foundation, I think would be really interesting. So those are the two areas that I would focus on. I'd be all over analytics and AI. That would be where I would want to go.
And what career objectives are you currently focusing on yourself?
Well, I run my own business now, so my career objectives are to grow my business, to grow my reach, and make sure that more people know about data storytelling, which is my passion. So that's really what I'm currently focused on.
And what's the number one non-technical skill that's helped you in your career so far?
Well, for me, it's very clearly evident communication skills, and so I
Yeah.
focus on data storytelling. So that's how do we tell a story with the insights that we've uncovered in the data. And I've really seen how important being able to communicate what you're doing, what you found, what you're working on. I mean, any kind of communication skills that you can get can be super valuable, and it's definitely helped me in my career.
And just on that, before we go to the other questions, so your book,
Yeah.
Effective Data Storytelling, could you maybe give us a bit of an understanding of where that's sort of positioned and who it would be good for?
Yeah. So if you work with, I mean, today I would say most people, any functional group has data at their fingertips, and we're often working and communicating data to other people. And so when you have insights that you've found, maybe you've done some analysis or you've got some recommendation you're making based on some data that you've analyzed. How do we communicate that? When I first started getting into this, I recognized that a lot of people would spend a lot of time analyzing the data, gathering the data, preparing the data, doing an amazing analysis, and then fail on the communication of that insight to other people. So they either didn't understand it, they were overwhelmed with too much information, or the visuals that they were using to communicate the information was too hard to follow, or too busy or dense, and so or a data dump. That's pretty bad. And so looking at how can I help people improve their data, their communication skills by telling stories. And so the three key elements of a data story are obviously data being the foundation, right? So it's not just a fictional story we're telling. We're actually basing it on facts and information. So we've done some analysis, we've gathered some information, and then we've weaved that into a narrative. And so the narrative is really how you structure the story. How do you structure it like a like a fairy tale, or that's probably too whimsical, but there really are some noticeable parts to a structure of a story, such as a climax, right? Do you have a climax in your story? And so taking that narrative component, which often when you're talking to audiences, we need to connect with people on an emotional level. And narrative is what really connects people on an emotional level, not just on an intellectual or rational level. And so that's why we want to have that narrative in there. And then the last piece, because often data is very overwhelming. It can be very complicated. How do we visualize the information in a way in which our key takeaways, our key points that we're trying to communicate to an audience are coming through and very powerfully? So it's combining those three elements, data, narrative, and visuals, into something that's very memorable, very engaging, and very persuasive. And that's really what my book, I get into all those areas. I talk about how to form stories around your numbers or your findings, and that's what the book's about.
Good. Okay, we'll come back to that before the end. But how do you keep your own career energized?
Yeah, that's a good question. Working for myself now, I have one employee who's my daughter. So she works with me, and we work together on building our business. But the way that I stay energized is really, I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn. So I'm always constantly bringing new content, new ideas, new thoughts, and just sharing them and engaging with people. Previously, when I worked on the corporate side, I'd have teammates and I'd have large teams, and I could share ideas and bounce things off them. And now I don't have that, so I have LinkedIn. I write blog posts. I write for Forbes, so I write Forbes articles, and then it's just kind of putting my ideas out there and seeing where they go, what kind of feedback, how people react to them. That's how I get energized, just sharing content and seeing how it resonates with people.
And what do you do away from technology in your spare time?
Yeah, I try to stay fit. So my wife's big into marathons and triathlons. I'm not that way, so I support her in her events. But I do like hikes. I do like hanging out with my family, and travel is always amazing to go different places and see sites. So those are the main ways. And I'm also this probably comes from my visual storytelling side. I love comic books, and so comic books are another. I like to collect them, so I go back and buy some of the comic books that I couldn't afford when I was a kid, and see if I can get some of
Yes.
those. So that's always fun. But love that aspect.
And Brent, can you share with us a parting piece of career advice?
Yeah, I think it goes back to remembering that communication is really critical. So when you've mastered the technical skills, you're going to need to get those soft skills as well. And I think if you're just starting your career, you may be heavily focused on those technical skills, but I think it's worth it to also start investing in some of those soft skills, especially like communication skills. You can't go wrong with solid communication skills, because it's going to help you to stand out. Your ideas, your work, your projects, if you're able to communicate them clearly, effectively to other people, your boss, to stakeholders, that's going to really amplify your success, and really being able to communicate with other people effectively is really a game changer. Because I think too often you see a lot of technical people who are in technical careers. They've done an amazing job studying the technical skills, but then you put them at the head of a meeting, and they don't know what to say. They don't know how to react, or to explain what they've worked on, or explain the value of their contributions, or answer questions. They start to get intimidated or nervous. So I think that if you can start working on those communication skills early in your career, it's only going to benefit you later in your career, because going to be that much further ahead. You're going to have that much more success. And people are going to see the value of your contributions because you will have explained them clearly. And that's really the gap I see sometimes with people who are technical people who are early in their careers.
Yeah, very, very good point. I also think the more you do, the better you get. It's like anything, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Practice, definitely makes improvement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Brent, how can we find out more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, probably. Well, you can go to effectivedatastorytelling.com. That's my website around my book. I also have another website called AnalyticsHero.com. That's more for the business. So those are the two websites. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so you can, if you like, to learn more about how you can communicate your data, your insights better. You're intrigued by data storytelling, definitely follow me on LinkedIn. Look for me, Brent Dykes, on LinkedIn. I'm a top voice there. And yeah, I'm also on Twitter, or X, I guess, is called now, at AnalyticsHero as well. But probably LinkedIn is the best place to find me, or those websites.
Perfect. Brent, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been great chatting with you.
Thanks, Phil. Great to be here. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in and listening to the IT Career Energizer podcast. And thank you again to my guest, Brent Dykes. If you want to check out his book, you'll find the link in the episode description. And of course, please tune in tomorrow for another daily episode.